Hello Hastings, welcome to an HCTV special. I'm Tom Wright, and we are very happy to have made a road trip today way up in St. Paul to the state capitol, the new Senate building to be exact. And the reason why we are here is to visit with your state senator, Katie Sieben.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Well,
and coming up here. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, thanks for having us.
Of course.
We haven't broken anything so far, and I hope to keep it that way. It's a very nice building you have here.
It is nice. It's I don't know if you're going to show viewers a tour, but the best thing is there's a lot of light in this building and big windows, and my office here looks out over the Capitol. So it's so far we're really enjoying it.
So we're here to talk to Senator Sieben, of course, get an update on things going on at the state capitol. But the big thing we're here for is, you may have heard that Senator Sieben announced that she is not seeking re-election in 2016. After 14 years of service to the legislature, she is done. She made that announcement just last month, and so we're here to talk about that big decision. And we'll hear about what led to it, and so what she has ideas for what's going on next, and then but also reflect on your 14 years. I think it'd be great to hear about that, all of that. And then, of course, we'll get some updates on what's going on here and what Senator Sieben here plans to do in her last year as a state senator. So let's start with that decision and what led to this decision to say, you know what, I think this is it.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I've really enjoyed being a state senator and a state representative. It's been certainly one of the greatest honors of my life, and I'll always look back at this time with fondness. I've really enjoyed getting to meet people in our communities, working for them, working for causes that our communities believe in and that I believe in. And like I said, it's just something that has been a great honor. But over the last year or so, it just felt like I was ready. I was increasingly feeling like it was time to move on. I have nothing negative to say about public service or serving in the state Senate. But
so
for
this
me,
wasn't due to some annoying lobbyist or anything like that, no?
No, certainly not. It felt like the right time for me and my family. As you know, Tom, now my husband and I have 3 kids. They're still pretty young, 2, almost 3, 4, and 8. So those 3 kids keep us pretty busy. And I said to a different reporter a couple weeks ago that one factor that came into play that I don't think people necessarily understand, and I don't want to sound like I'm whining or complaining about this, but the pay that we get as legislators isn't very great, and the burden of having that low salary. We make about $32,000 a year, and that's been consistent for the 14 years. As our kids get older and we look to save for college and increasingly, the needs that we have as a family, that was a factor in my decision to not seek re-election.
That's a valid reason right there. And you know what? I do have a question regarding that. We will jump right into that, because I was looking up online. Other legislators that have also stepped down, and because you are not the only one, as many know. Last summer there was an article about a colleague of yours, Senator Brandon Peterson, who announced he would not seek re-election because it was affecting his career. He said it was tough to find a paying job that allowed him to keep a part-time role up at the Capitol, and he mentioned the $31,000 salary. That wasn't cutting it, and that's you guys haven't had a raise in 16 years. So in your 14 years, never saw a raise, right? And there's Representative Larry Hush, Senator Mi Mua, I apologize if I'm pronouncing those wrong, and her house actually went into foreclosure during her time. Representative Jim Abel. So yeah, I think it's fair to say it's an issue. What is the solution to this issue?
Well, the good news is that, and this was just a factor in my decision. It wasn't certainly the only one. It was one of multiple factors.
Yeah.
But one thing that voters can look for is in November there's going to be a ballot question, a constitutional amendment ballot question, and it will ask voters whether they want the pay to not be set by legislators, but set by a panel of outside individuals, not lobbyists, not legislators, to determine legislative pay. And if that passes, hopefully it will result in hopefully it will result in a modest increase. It just seems like it's always, especially with the House being up for election every 2 years, it's at least in my experience, it's been too difficult for the House to agree to even a modest pay increase. And so maybe this constitutional amendment might be the solution to it.
What has been the contention? Is it constituents, we don't want our tax money going to raises? Is that, or legislators afraid to rub people the wrong way?
I think it's always hard for elected officials to raise their own pay.
Yeah,
certainly it should be, because we're stewards of taxpayer dollars and have to be really careful with that, and don't want to look like we're benefiting from that, from our position. So, but like I said, maybe this will pass and that will be a good solution long term. Because even as I've talked to candidates who may be interested, or people who may be interested in running for the legislature, I found across the state that it's sometimes hard to get the people you want to run for office to run because they can't make that financial sacrifice. So for example, I remember talking to a teacher in outstate Minnesota who really wanted to run, but was making, $50,000 a year as a teacher, and for the time that she would be at the Capitol, to move down to a lower pay, she didn't feel she was able to make that financial sacrifice for her family. So, like I said, it is a factor. I'm hopeful, though, that it will get addressed and it won't be as big of an issue in the future.
Great. Well, interesting. I was wondering if that was part of your decision, because it is, like I said, I think it is an issue of those in office leaving. And I don't think, I'll go ahead and say I think can blame you guys for that. You got to put food on the table, right, and look out for your kids.
And I think that what people understand, because I get it all the time, is as legislators, we're working a lot. We work, when we're at home, at the grocery store, people want to talk. There are a lot of night and evening activities, and campaigning certainly takes a lot of time. And obviously, you're not paid for that, nor should you be. But so the demands of the job are pretty significant. But again, I don't want to sound like I'm all negative. It's a really awesome job. It's so great to represent people, and one of the things I've liked best is being able to learn about so many different issues. Aquatic invasive species, to farming practices, to consumer protection laws, and banning expiration dates on gift cards, to crib safety legislation for daycares. There's just been, it's so fascinating and interesting to work on different issues.
Going back to your decision real quick, I was curious to get more specific as far as was this kind of a him and haw back and forth for a long time kind of decision, or was there a moment when you were just like, you know what, maybe we were with the kids outside, or just, was there a moment that you just thought, you know what, yeah, I'm done?
No, there wasn't. I can't think back to any real aha moment like that. It's more been a continual discussion with my husband and some close family and friends about what would be the best, what's best for our family, what's best for me professionally next. And as I said, I just have been thinking about it for a while, but came to this decision.
And I'm sure your husband, Josh, right? I'm
Right.
sure he gave it a big thumbs up, huh?
He did, but he has been incredibly supportive over the years.
Yeah.
We got married actually when I was a House member, so he definitely knew what he was getting into when we got married, and he's been my greatest supporter, and I certainly couldn't have done it all these years without that support.
Well, let's talk about what's next. What ideas do you have in mind, and what Katie Sieben is going to be up to a year from now? What do you have in mind?
To be really honest, I'm not sure yet. I am starting to talk to different people about potential jobs and ideas that I have and areas that I'm interested in working in. But the nice thing is I'm really committed to being a senator until my term ends. The legislative session is coming, so that's really my main focus now. And after the session's over and my term doesn't end until December, so in that time frame I'll hopefully figure it out.
Great. Well, I was anticipating that answer, so I have a little fun thing I wanted to play with you here. We'll call it playing a game of warm or cold. And so I'm going to guess a profession, and you tell me if I'm warm or cold.
Okay.
Ready to play?
I don't know if I'm ready, but we'll try.
All right. You have a master's in public administration, so my first guess is city administrator, along those lines?
Am I supposed to say what I would like to do or what I think
That's
could
if
happen?
it's warm, if you would consider it
If I would
warm.
consider
If
it
it's warm.
warm.
Okay,
Warm.
all right, there we go.
Yeah.
How about a mayor?
Cold. I'm not ready to campaign again quite yet.
Are you considering going to the dark side as a lobbyist?
I'd say cold.
Cold on that one. You do have nice hair. A hairdresser?
No, more cold. I mean,
Cold?
for sure. No talent there.
This is possible. Enter a convent and become a nun?
Cold.
Cold, okay. Had to ask. You do have 3 young boys. That's a full-time job. Would you be a stay-at-home mom for a while?
Possibly.
Warm?
I actually have 2 boys and a girl.
Oh, 2 boys. I'm sorry,
But
2 boys and a girl.
Close.
I was close. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, there you go. Game over. You won.
Good.
You won.
Good.
Let's reflect a little bit on your 14 years. How did your experience in the legislature in the 14 years compare to what your expectations were when you first elected? And you were young when you were first elected. How old were you?
I was 26.
26.
25 or 26.
25 or 26.
Yeah.
So what surprised you the most out of
Well,
all of
one
it?
funny story I remember about being young, and now I appreciate it when people comment on how I'm young because it's been a while, is when I walked into the House chamber one of the first days, or it may have been the first day, one of the sergeants said, "Oh no, miss, the intern entrance, you have to go in a different door." So the sergeant tried to, and I said, "Oh, actually, I just got elected." And he said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know. So that was kind of funny. But
That's a great story.
yeah, there's been a lot of, one of the best things about being a legislator is you get to meet people from all over the state.
Mm-hmm.
And so forming friendships with people from, as I said, all over Minnesota, talking to folks who come down to lobby on their particular issue, whether they're lobbyists or regular people, it has been really fun and gratifying.
I know you have nothing negative to say about legislature in your experience, but did you find it, I'll put it this way, did you find it challenging at any time about being a woman in state legislator?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, maybe now that I'm on my way out, I can be more candid, but I think that it's not different from what women face in other professions, so I don't think I'm unique here, but certainly I've experienced sexism and overt, and not ill-intentioned in many cases, but challenges, especially when I was pregnant or recently had a baby. There were a lot of weird comments that I get from people about.
Really? Like, what would they say?
Like, why aren't I home now with the baby? Or why didn't I time my pregnancy so I'd have a child when we weren't in session? There are just some weird things that have happened, but as I said, I don't think I'm unique in that. Talking to girlfriends and other women in the community, I think that happens to women in the workplace on a regular basis, and it's something that as policymakers we need to be aware of and work to address in ways that are reasonable. One example of that was a couple years back, I helped pass the Women's Economic Security Act, and it doesn't directly translate into my experience, but we put in place provisions now in Minnesota so that women who are pregnant can sit on the job instead of standing if at all possible. So if you're working at a gas station, you can sit on a stool. You can have water by your workplace. You can take bathroom breaks more frequently if needed. And certainly being a woman and having been pregnant certainly influenced my thinking on how those provisions were important to pass, because you sort of think, well, why doesn't, of course you can use the bathroom if you need to and you're pregnant, but in a lot of cases, and we heard testimony on this, that's not always the case for workers, especially lower wage workers. So it's been fun to work on things like that. And this session, I'm carrying a bill for paid family leave. And I know how difficult it was to come back to work right after having a baby, and think it's really important for families to have some time after the birth or adoption of a child at home with their kids. So I'm going to work hard on that legislation this session.
Another reflection question: what are you most proud of that you have accomplished in the last 14 years in the legislature?
Well, I really like the new Hastings Bridge, and think that certainly was not anything that I can say I did it on my own at all. But I really liked being part of that process, working with the mayor, working with a coalition of folks from Hastings who are prepared to, go to Washington and lobby for a new bridge and do whatever we could to get that project going. I'm really proud of working on the PFC legislation, the pollution from 3M that impacted our area, and think that work was really important for the legacy of future generations, and how do we respond to industrial pollution, and what does it mean for the health of our communities. Those are probably the two top things I'd say took a lot of effort, and I'm proud of the progress we made.
What are you going to miss the most?
I'm going to miss the people. Not only talking to constituents on the phone and trying to help them with problems, but my colleagues here and
the
lobbyists. Staff.
Does this include the lobbyists too?
Yeah, there are a lot of lobbyists who do good work, who do a lot of great things and advocate for good policies and projects. So I'll miss the people.
And on the flip side, what will you miss the least? What will you not miss?
I won't miss getting yelled at by people on the phone sometimes who feel really passionately and sometimes can get a little aggressive. And I'm being a little flippant. That doesn't happen very often, and 99% of the time people are really great to talk to.
What are some of the common complaints you would hear? What would people yell about?
Oh, I don't know. Like last year when there was gun safety legislation moving through the legislature, you'd get some pretty angry people calling about if I supported the legislation, why, and how stupid I was, and it would go on from there. But the other thing I won't miss is raising money. That's a thing that I wish we could have done more. I wish I could have done more work on, or been more successful at here at the legislature. I really think it's important to have campaign finance limits that limit the amount of money that go into campaigns, but also, with Citizens United, the new money that's now being spent on legislative races, I think isn't good. It's not good for public participation. It's not good for allowing candidates to get their message out and their voice out, no matter what side you're on. That influx of money, I think, is somewhat toxic and not good.
What's being done about that? Is there any progress or any hope at all for that?
We have had legislation here to try to influence, or to try to at least increase disclosure, so that outside groups that are spending money have to disclose how they're spending that money and who's who's paying for it. We haven't had success in getting that through the Republican House, but hopefully that will come in the future. Because at least if there's going to be a lot of money spent, voters should know who's spending the money.
Let's bring it back to today here and talk about your last session, your final year here. What is on the agenda? What do you plan to do? Are you planning to go out with a bang here?
I
You got
hope
you got
so.
some crazy new ideas that you're gonna you've had in your pocket that you saved for your last year?
One thing that I haven't introduced, but because I chaired the subcommittee on elections, and I don't know if my staff will like me saying this, is in Australia they have mandatory voting, where you vote or you're fined. And I'm not ready to prepare that legislation, but that was something the other night when I was thinking, like, what will I regret that I didn't push for more? I think that it's really important that people vote and express their views through that process, and anything we can do to encourage more people to vote is a good thing. Now, mandatory voting is probably going too far, but that...
So you're talking about general population, everybody, not just legislators. Okay.
Oh yeah, general population for the elections, that people have to vote, or in Australia they're fined. And I just find that kind of fascinating, a different way to think about things. And like I said, it might be it's too far for us. Now we're not going to go there, I don't think, but...
It's your last year, go for it.
But that's like a crazy idea I had of a bill to introduce. But things that are top priorities for the session are helping to pass a transportation bill. Desperately needs to happen. Our infrastructure is literally crumbling in places, and we need that investment. A bonding bill is certainly a top priority. It's a bonding year. It's not a budget year. So helping to get projects for our area included in that bonding bill will be something I'll be working hard on. Projects like the Hastings riverfront revitalization. And then two bills that I'm working on that are taking a lot of time are pre-K, that I've advocated for in the past, so that families, and certainly Josh and I feel this now, families have high quality pre-K options for their 4-year-olds. I know Hastings is doing really great things in their school district, and it'd be great if all Minnesota families would have that opportunity, I think, to send their kid to a half-day program, for example, if they wanted to. They certainly don't have to. And then the second issue is paid family leave that I touched on before. 3 other states in the country have parental or family leave, and I think that the polling shows that overwhelming majority of Minnesotans support this, and I think the country and Minnesota is moving in that direction, where there's a recognition that in some cases our workplaces haven't kept up with the changing face of families, and how there are, majority of 2 parents work, and the ability for families to have some time to stay home with a new baby, or to take care of a loved one who's sick. I think there's a path. It will be difficult, but there's a path to hopefully see that happen this session.
Great. Well, lots of things going on. Lots of things on the agenda. Sounds like you will be going out with a bang, especially if you go for the find the voters if they don't vote thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I say go for it.
I wonder how many phone calls I'll get about that. Like, that's
just
a
might get some
terrible
angry
idea. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for all your service to Hastings and to District 54. I'm sure you're going to be missed, and I know some people are bummed about the news, but I think a lot of people understand as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for having us up here again.
It's been great to work with you over the years, and I really appreciate the good work you do for the Hastings community through this service. And again, I really appreciate the opportunity to serve as state senator, so thank you.
Great. Well, here you are, Senator Katie Sieben, and I'm Tom Wright, and we'll see you next time.